James Himm Mitchell here, and in this video I'll be looking at our tarot cards for the week starting February the 1st, 2016. So stay tuned. And here we are with the cards on the table, and the deck assisting me for this week's reading is the Archangel Tarot Cards by Doreen Virtue, Radleigh Valentine, and Jeff Bedrick. And the reason for the choice is because we are moving towards the end of January, and this video is for the beginning of February. And this is the time period where sometimes we can experience a need for a boost in terms of inspiration and motivation, especially if we have taken the time to set a new intention or make a resolution for the new year. And so we are now a month into the new year, and so I'm using this deck because we may need a little boost from the angels. And this particular deck I have heard being referenced as the archangels being our angelic life coaches. And so since I work as a life coach, I thought that maybe if you're experiencing just a need for a little bit of inspiration, not to give up on the intention or the resolution that you've made, then this might be the way to help give you that little bit of a boost. So again, this is the Archangel Tarot Cards by Doreen Virtue, Radleigh Valentine, and Jeff Bedrick. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the deck in hand and I'm going to shuffle, and I'm asking, what do we need to know about the week ahead? And in these general readings, this is just about what the potentials and the possibilities are. And so when you're watching this, you have to ask yourself, how can I look at this information in a way and make it relatable to my life experience? Because we are all in different stages and phases of our life. So these readings can't be a blanket, one reading fits all type of situation. So you just have to ask yourself, how is this at work in my life with the way that my life is? And so as I'm shuffling, I'm looking for a card to stick out. And the first card typically represents the beginning of the week. Shuffling again. The middle card represents the middle of the week. And then the final card will represent the end of the week. All right. So what I do every week after I pull the cards is that I take a moment to look at the card that's at the bottom of the deck, because that card is going to inform us as the basis or the foundation of the week. So the card is the Page of Raphael. And so in traditional tarot, this would be the Page of Cups, because each suit in this particular deck is assigned to a particular archangel. So here we have Raphael. Raphael is the patron saint of healing. So there may be an emotional issue this week that needs to be healed or examined. Usually the page represents a learning stage of development, so it would represent something new that we are experiencing. This can be a new experience, either emotionally or spiritually speaking, because I'm looking at the top of the card and it says a new emotional situation. So it could be we are experiencing some new feelings or new sensations in terms of either an emotional situation or a spiritual experience. And having said that, the Page of Raphael can be known to be somebody who is highly sensitive. So it could just be a matter of looking at our level of sensitivity this week, emotional sensitivity, and that could also be intuitive sensitivity. This card can be like a person who is just starting out exploring his or her intuition. So if you are on that track, if you are working with your intuition, then this card is asking you to kind of start learning how your intuition works or speaks to you. Because intuition is our that little small voice that we all have within us, but it speaks to all of us differently. So the page of Raphael could be asking you to consider, how is your intuition speaking to you, and are you listening to it? You know, it's one thing to know that you're intuitive. It's another thing to know that you're intuitive, working with your intuition and listening to your own intuition. So you could be experiencing situations in which you're being asked to start trusting your intuition, because I tend to look at the page of Raphael as like a first impressions kind of thing. So part of that is, when you're working with your intuition, is like when you meet a person for the first time, or you're in a space for the first time, or you're just about your business, like, what is the first impression that you get? How does it make you feel? I shouldn't, let me just say that. When you're dealing with intuition, it's about, how do things make you feel? Like, do you feel like I could be okay in this space, or do you feel like, I don't know quite how to explain it, but, I just get a bad vibe, because I'm seeing the word vibe. So it's about trusting your vibes. Because when I said first impression, you don't want it to be something that is like a judgment or a criticism, because that's your mind. That's the ego. That's not your intuition. So be mindful of it. And that's a good way, because that's a good way for you to start making the distinction. How does your intuition speak? If it's not something that comes across loving about another person, it comes across as a judgment or a criticism, that might not be your intuition. Your intuition might suggest to you, this might not be the place or the person you need to be in, that's in your best and highest good, that's going to serve and support you. That would be your intuition. But your mind or your ego would make it a judgment or a criticism. And that's not necessarily how your intuition works. Your intuition would say, it's okay if it's okay for you to be around this person, or it's okay for you to be in this space, or not. So that is the foundation card for the week. The page of Raphael is about, learning and developing your intuition, knowing how it speaks to you. Because you could get a great deal of intuitive information this week. So that's the page of Raphael. Now, turning to the card that is at the beginning of the week, here we have the 9 of Raphael. So now we have 2 Raphael cards back to back. So this is the potential for either an emotional week, or a week where we are really being asked to explore our intuition and our spirituality, I should say. So the 9 of Raphael, when it comes up, it's known as the wish card. It's traditionally known as, when it comes up, getting your wishes fulfilled or your wishes granted. So it says here, dreams become a reality. So at the beginning of the week, you could be seeing a dream, a long-standing dream, because the 9 in tarot numerology for me represents attainment, something gained as a result of having an experience. So it could be like after a long-standing period of time, you have a wish granted or a wish fulfilled. Now here's the thing about wishes, because I'm looking at the image on the card, and there's the man on the card is a genie. And so when you are making quote-unquote wishes, it's important for you to be mindful of the words that you're speaking, and making sure that the intention of the wish is clear. Because I've seen lots of stories, where a person has seen a lamp, a magic lamp, rubbed it, genie comes out, and they make a wish, and the genie is quite literal in what the person wished for, because they're saying one thing, and in their mind they know what they're envisioning or wanting, but the genie is quite literal. And so look at this. Now that I'm saying this is great, because the 9 is a universal number, a number of universal wisdom. So the universe, when we're throwing wishes out to the universe and say, I wish for this or I wish for that, the universe is quite literal. So the universe doesn't get a joke. It doesn't get like, oh, I was just kidding, or that wasn't really what I meant. The universe takes you at your word. So it's important for you to be, as they say in the 4 agreements, the first agreement is be impeccable with your word. Make sure that you are meaning what you say and saying what you mean, because the old adage with the wish card is, be careful what you wish for, because you might get it. So be clear on what it is that you're languaging, or what you're speaking, the words that you're speaking, because your words are powerful, especially in terms of what it is that you're wanting to have fulfilled in your life. So I'm saying that because they're making me feel like the universe is just like a Xerox machine. It only copies, it's only going to reproduce what it is that you are expressing. And so if you're not clear in your expression, You're only going to get that, and then you're going to make it the universe's fault when you were the one who wasn't clear. So that's the beginning of the week. Moving to the middle of the week, oh my gosh, we have the Ten of Raphael, and I did shuffle this because now you're looking at it, you would think, did you shuffle the cards? And I did. So the Ten of Raphael is a card that comes right after the Nine of Raphael in the same suit, and so this card can just represent emotional rewards. You're seeing the emotional rewards of life. This card typically is the marriage and family card, so it could be that somebody watching this video may have a particular wish or concern or desire that is pertaining to a family issue. You know, this card is the marriage and family card, so it could be literally somebody is wishing to be married or wishing to have kids or both. And then this card here says, okay, be mindful of, again, going with the idea about being in agreement or in alignment with the universe. Here we have a rainbow, and so the rainbow for me can represent the archangels and working with the angels. It can also be if you believe in a higher power, like God, Spirit, the universe, unified field, whatever you call it for you, then this is about you being in alignment and agreement with that. Typically, the rainbow shows up after we've experienced the storms in life. So it could be that we are going to have an emotional resolution, because tens represent transition and completion, to an emotional challenge, emotional stormy time. And again, if that is the case, if there's some emotional work that needs to be done, then one of the angels for sure to call on this week is Archangel Raphael, because Raphael has shown up in 3 cards. And this is his symbol right here. So I'm seeing that. Now, the other thing about this card, in relation to what I said about getting your wish, in terms of be careful what you wish for because you might get it. The 10 of Raphael on the flip side, the more challenging side, can represent emotionally being overwhelmed, you know, being in a situation in which we feel like we're in over our head, that kind of thing. So it could be like, as a result of you getting the wish that you wanted, especially if you weren't clear, it may produce, you know, a state of emotional overwhelm, or you feeling like you're in over your head. So be mindful of that. That might be a challenge. And then the other thing that I'm seeing with this that I didn't touch on before when I talked about family is that sometimes this card can show up when we are about to be reunited or have a reunion with family. So if we've been separated with family, or we've had issues with family, and that may be part of the emotional storm that I was seeing before when I was talking about the rainbow, it could be like the middle of the week could be the time where we get to experience a reunion of some kind, family coming together, some sort of resolution or completion that allows us to move on. The card reads, at the very end of it, it reads happily ever after. So this could be you getting your happily ever after at the middle of the week, especially coming off of the 9 of Raphael being your wish coming true. So I'm seeing that. So now at the end of the week, oh my gosh, this is crazy. We have the Queen of Raphael. So Raphael is the angel this week. Raphael really wants to make his presence known. So the interesting thing about the Queen of Raphael is that 2 things. So I'm going to go with the first thing that jumped out at me in a moment. She, for me, represents the sign of Cancer. Cancer is a sign that's attributed to home and family. So there may be, with this card, reinforcing the idea that there may be a family or a home-related issue that gets resolved this week. When the Queen of Raphael comes up, she is like, out of all the queens in the deck, she's the one who's the most like mom. She's the one who is caring, nurturing, understanding about family. She's the one who likes to bake cookies, reads kids' stories, you know, very domesticated, things of that nature. Always there for family. So it could be that a family issue, again, gets resolved or gets healed. Now, the other thing that I note with the Queen of Raphael, especially with the Page of Raphael being the opening card, is that just like the Page of Raphael, this card can represent somebody who is highly intuitive and highly psychic. So it could be that if you are working with developing your intuition, you may see some growth in that by the week's end if you are committed to the process, because we're seeing a change here in terms of the Page being somebody who's just starting out, who's very immature, doesn't have a whole lot of experience, to the Queen, who is more experienced than the Page. So we're seeing a natural progression here. So it could be that you're being asked to trust your intuitive senses this week, because it says on the card, trustworthy psychic information. So if you've been hoping or wishing to develop your intuition, then this is a good card to have at the end of the week, because you're being asked to trust the intuitive information that you receive. Now, the other thing about the Queen of Raphael for me is that she can also represent being a reader. So if you are working with your intuition, one of the hopes and wishes that you may have is to maybe see some growth and development in your reading practice or business. And if that's the case, then the 10 of Raphael in the middle could just represent looking at it from an emotional place. Like, what are the emotional rewards? How is the work that you're doing emotionally satisfying? Because there's no denying it. With so many Raphael cards, you're being asked to look at how things are making you feel. And that's all about our intuition. Our intuition is really rooted in our feelings. And so if you start looking at what makes you feel good about what it is that you're doing in terms of the service, because the 10 of Raphael here in this regard is about the spiritual community. So it could be one of the things you're being asked to do is maybe move more into the spiritual or metaphysical community in your area to see how you could be of service to that. But it's also too, and seeing the growth, because sometimes this card represents spiritual growth. So I'm seeing a whole lot of energy to that. So if you're interested in that, if that is where you're at with your life in terms of working with your intuition, very positive card. Okay, so now having said that, we can look at what the overall major arcana card is that corresponds to all these Raphael cards. And now we're going to see what the major arcana card for the week is. It's going to serve as the overall lesson. And we do that by taking the cards for the week. So the 9 of Raphael, 10 of Raphael, Queen of Raphael, adding them together. So we're going to take 9 and 10. And the Queen for me is valued at 13. So 13. And we have 32. Now there are 22 major arcana cards in the deck. So when I get a number over 22, like I have in this case, I'm going to take the 3 and the 2, add them together, and they reduce to 5. So the 5th major arcana card in the deck is Divine Guidance. And so now the first thing that jumps out at me with Divine Guidance is that another meaning for this card could be family. And so touched on with a number of cards, with the 10 of Raphael and the Queen of Raphael in particular, there may be a family issue that we are experiencing this week that is highlighted, is coming to the surface, coming to the forefront of our lives. And with that, Divine Guidance is asking us, what is that experience teaching us? Because this card can represent the spiritual teacher, and life is our greatest spiritual teacher. You know, the number 5 on this regard can represent the 5 senses, so it's attached to the physical world. And so a lot of what we are learning about ourselves comes through our physical experiences of being on this planet. So, you know, in terms of all our experiences, and especially with our families, because that is the first institution, because the Divine Guidance card can be a card of institutions. So the family is actually the first institution that we are associated with. And so your family is also going to be your greatest teachers, because those relationships that you experience within your family are also going to actually be the models, because, you know, the psych person in me is coming out. And so there is a term in psychology that we call modeling, which means that we learn by observing other people, either by what they say or what they do. Then we model our relationships with other people, because this card is also about socialization. So once we leave that first institution of our family, we go out into the larger institution that's the world. We tend to model our relationships with other people based on the relationships we have experienced within our families. So It could be you taking a look at the way you are modeling your relationships to other people, and how are they mirroring, or how are they like relationships that you have with particular family members, because you're being asked to look at that this week and ask yourself, what are you learning from that this week? Sometimes in our family dynamics, the divine guidance card is about seeking approval. So it could be like maybe the challenge that I was talking about with the 10 of Raphael, the stormy time, could be, an approval issue, like, a child seeking approval from parents, parents seeking approval from grandparents. There may be an approval issue here, and that needs to be looked at. And so it becomes like, well, if that is the case, if there is a need for approval, because here's the thing, again, going back to the whole dynamic about the way we interact with people in our families, the way we interact with people out in the world. If you are conditioned and programmed for a need for approval in your family, guess what? You take that out into the world with you too. That becomes a belief that you have to have the approval of other people. And that can sometimes be problematic, because you may get yourself into relationships that are in your best and highest good and no longer serving and supporting you because of this need for approval. So sometimes when I call it the people-pleasing card. So sometimes you have to be mindful of people-pleasing and why you're doing that. And you may need to change that, because in number 5 in that regard is about changing things. That may have worked for you in the past to some degree or some regard, but you're being asked to change that. The other thing with the divine guidance card, it's about, especially if you're working with your intuition, then this card would represent, spiritual communities, spiritual teachers. Somebody could help move you along with that regard. And also too, I tend to look at this card, one of this card, is that when we're looking at psychic senses, the number 5 represents the physical senses, but we also have 5 psychic senses. And so this card would suggest that a dominant psychic sense for someone watching this video who's exploring their intuition is the ability of clairaudience, which means clear hearing, that you receive messages through like lines of songs or music. It may seem like it's auditory messages that you're receiving. And so that may be your dominant mode, and you're being asked to learn how to work with that. How does that work for you? And if that is the case, then the angel who can help you with that is Archangel Sandalphon, because Archangel Sandalphon is the angel that is assigned to music. And so I tend to look at it that way. It's not necessarily like just music per se, but symbolically, he would help you be more in tune with that and bring that into a greater state of harmony. So I'm seeing that. So it could be like you hear words and you hear music. So you have to ask yourself, what's the message behind the music? If you hear a line from a song, it's about what's the message in that. Because it's really not about the music, it's about the message that is interlaced or interwoven with that. So it's about learning that thing. Because the divine guidance card is about usually being the intercessor or the intermediary or the middle person between spirit and the masses. So it could be too like you may actually take this on if you learn to work with it, learn to develop it. It could be like you become, I call it spirit's mouthpiece, and then you have to be mindful of learning how to communicate with spirit, how spirit communicates with you, and therefore how are you going to communicate or get the messages across to the people who need to have them. So this may be a time for you to learn and develop that, especially when I talked about the page being a student and the queen being more developed. That could be the way you develop that, is to work with a teacher. But I'm going to go with the first impulse was about family and working through family-related issues. And if that is the case, then one of the ways that you can help with that, because I'm being shown the music thing again, and so music can sometimes represent prayers for people, because prayers and music offer a higher vibration. So it could be if you're having issues with family members or other people in your circle, then the best thing you could do is to pray for them. Pray for yourself and pray for them, and that helps elevate the vibration of the situation and helps change it. But you could also ask Archangel Sandalphon to assist you with that. And again, Archangel Raphael, because all the cards were Raphael cards, so we can't ignore that or leave that part out. So, but they together can help work on healing that. But the best way to heal it is to raise the vibration. And when I say raise the vibration, it would be start looking at it in terms of being focused on the solution and not necessarily the problem. Because when you place all your attention on the problem, that's all you're going to see. But if you take the time to shift towards a solution, then it elevates the vibration, because you're not in the same vibrational frequency as the quote-unquote problem. So I'm seeing that. So that is divine guidance this week. So summing up, the 9 of Raphael is like at the beginning of the week, we could see a wish being fulfilled or granted, but now be mindful of the power of your words, especially in terms of what it is that you're hoping and wishing for, because if you're not clear on it, you'll get what it is that you wished for. It may not be exactly the way you expected it, because you may not have been clear enough, but the universe will give you exactly what it is that you are languaging. So be mindful of the power of your words this week in terms of what it is that you're hoping and wishing for. The middle of the week, again, if you get your wish granted and fulfilled, then this will put you in the space of 10 of Raphael, because life is really good. You are extremely happy. You are happily ever after. This is great. You know, the challenging side is if you're not clear on your wish and you get your wish granted and it doesn't come out exactly the way you had intended it, then you may find yourself feeling emotionally overwhelmed as a result of that. But both of these cards are asking you to make sure that you're clear on your dialogue with the universe, because the universe hears everything you're saying and it takes you at your word. And then the Queen of Raphael, going with the 10 of Raphael, if we're having an issue with family, because this is the family, marriage and family card, if we're having an issue with our family, then this card is a positive card to have in the regards of like putting the energy into seeing that restored. But it's about approaching it from a sense or a place of being caring and nurturing. Now, that's caring and nurturing for everyone involved, and that includes you. It's like don't leave yourself out of the equation. You know, going with the divine guidance card, it's not about you people pleasing and having everyone else being happy with you, and then you're not happy with you. So that's the energy of the cards for the week. This has been your week in tarot. I am James Himm Mitchell, and I want to thank you for sharing this space here with me this week. If you like this video, consider subscribing to my channel. That way you get updated every time I post a new video. And I want to welcome all my new subscribers who joined on in the course of the week in between last week's reading and this week's reading. I want to say welcome and thank you for blessing me with your presence, as well as acknowledging all my current and long-standing subscribers. There would be no Your Week in Tarot without any of you, and so I'm so thankful and blessed by having you all here. So this is James Himm Mitchell signing off, and until our next video together, have a tarot-tastic week and take care.